that kind introduction. So my name is Attila Sandor, and I welcome you from Central Europe, in the middle of Europe. Szeged Fungus Association is a conservation NGO, and we work on the field of science and education to protect nature and protect macrofungi. We share values with the Central Texas Mycological Society. This is one of the reasons why I am here today. Our main activity is a field mycology course. It's a 2-semester-long habitat-based, a conservation-oriented a course and a curriculum, and you will get an insight of that course in the next 30-40 minutes. I chose a part from that course that is tasteful and easy to consume. It is gastronomy. So take a look at the agenda. We will see nutritional composition, how to handle fruit bodies from picking to preparing. There are a group of edibles that require special treatment. We will see then preservation techniques and gastronomy. That's a course, so we have learning objectives. At the end of the learning process, you will be able to, for example, describe the nutritional characteristics of a mushroom food and name specific carbohydrates and vitamins. But there are knowledge and skill level learning objectives, and also awareness level objectives, like take responsibility for the mushroom food you prepare and serve. A typographic comment. Topics printed in blue are supplementary, not part of the main body of the curriculum. I prepared a draft and a self-assessment form, and also a lecture evaluation form, and I ask Angel, please share it with the audience. Thank you. So we will see nutritional composition first. We will use the standard categories to describe fungi fruit body composition. Fruit bodies are moist, as you know. The water content varies from 45 to 95%, generally 90%. The mineral content is measured on a dry mass basis, and it is from 5 to 30%. Mushroom fruit bodies perhaps contains calcium, iron, sodium, selenium, and many other minerals that are usually found in every other living things. But I just highlighted for you those that are significant in fungi fruit bodies. potassium, phosphorus, and magnesium. For example, the potassium sodium rate is important, and it is high in mushrooms. So mushrooms are a good food source for an anti-hypertension diet. Mushrooms tend to accumulate heavy metals and other harmful elements, like arsenic, cadmium, copper, mercury, and lead. And if you would like to hear something weird, also gold and silver. A biological process called bioaccumulation. During that process, fungi, vegetative and fruit body, accumulate these elements 2 orders of magnitude higher than the ambient concentration. So you shouldn't pick mushroom growing on soil in a potentially contaminated area like industrial zone, military zone, landfills, etc. Next main category is proteins. It is an important category. A protein content varies from 2 to 9% on a raw mass basis. It is generally 3%. There was a misconception about a protein content of mushrooms. It was printed in textbooks in Europe even. A protein content was measured based on the inorganic nitrogen content. It was a simple analytical method to measure inorganic nitrogen content, and the protein content is calculated from that result. And this method is good for almost every food sources except fungi because of chitin. Chitin is not protein, but contains nitrogen, a nitrogen containing molecule. Despite of this analytical fiasco, we can say that mushrooms, fungi, fruit bodies are excellent protein source because of essential amino acids like lysine, phenylalanine, valine, etc. Amino acids are the basic building blocks of proteins, and the essential amino acids cannot be synthesized by the human body cells. So we must have these essential amino acids from food. There is no high volume of protein in fungi fruit bodies, but the decay of decay process of a protein can produce and accumulate harmful chemicals like urea, also called carbamide, histamine, betaine. The next main category is carbohydrates. glucose is not specific to the fungi. It is a basic energy molecule for every living things. Mannose is also a 6-carbon sugar. It is specific but not unique to fungi. And mannitol is a sugar alcohol. Trehalose is a disaccharide specific to fungi. It was originally discovered in fungi, also called mycose, and it has a special attributes like special properties like antibacterial effect and water retention. If you want to taste the sweetness of these carbohydrates, you should taste the raw velvet fruit, a Flammulina species. It is a winter mushroom, and it freeze tolerate and it tolerates cold weather. I assume it is not abundant in your area, but in the north and in the mountains. There are also polysaccharides in mushrooms. These polysaccharides are polymers of a glucose molecule with different bonds. Glycogen is a general one. It is a short-term energy storage molecule in fungal and animal cells. Beta-glucans are an interesting and important class of compounds that are available not only in fungal cell wall but in plant cell wall, and it has important supplementary properties. We can name a few. For example, lentinan from shiitake, Lentinula edodes, or schizophyran from split gills, Schizophyllum commune, and those molecules have immune modulation effect in the human body. Chitin is a long chain molecule, the main component of a fungal cell wall, and as I mentioned, it contains nitrogen. Fungi also contain fatty acids. It is not much, 2 to 6% on a dry mass basis, so it is under 1% regarding raw mass. Mainly unsaturated and polyunsaturated omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. So mushrooms are a low calorie food source with essential fatty acids. Essential means, again, which is needed by the human body but cannot be created itself. Fungi do not contain cholesterol. Ergosterol plays the same role in the fungi cell membrane that cholesterol plays in animal cell membrane. Ergosterol is converted to vitamin D2 in the human body. Fungi fruit body contains ready-made vitamins like thiamine, riboflavin, and niacin. These are vitamin B1, 2, and 3, respectively. Some species also contain carotenoids for vitamin A. Vitamin C is not available in fungi. Practically there is no vitamin C or very small amount. There are also dietary fibers like chitin and chitosan. Those are important building blocks of every fungal cell walls. And those dietary fibers, like chitin, chitosan, and some of the beta glucans, sorry, like other fibers from a plant, plays vital role in the digestive process. However, they cannot be degraded by the broken down by the human digestive enzyme, play a vital role in the digestive process, feeds intestinal microbiome, and releases nutrients during the fermentation process. So fungi are nutrition food sources, and not only food sources, but functional and adaptogenic foods with medicinal and stress protection benefits. We have a few simple rules for picking mushrooms. Pick mushroom gently, responsibly, respectfully. Show your respect to fungi as a living organism by picking respectfully. Pick a few, never pick all. Be modest. Avoid a damaging environment and mycelium itself. Pick only the intact, healthy, and mature fruit bodies. A too young fruit body cannot show the properties required, necessary to identify a species, which is obviously important if you want to eat, as well as old and damaged fruit bodies. Take the fruit bodies into an open, airy, a solid open airy container like a basket. And if you foray not only for food but examination or scientific purposes, separate fruit from specimen. Use waxy paper or aluminum foil. Clean mushrooms dry with a brush and a knife. Never soak fungi fruit bodies into water. There are a few exceptions. For example, I'm sorry, screen sharing stopped. I'm trying to share again. Okay. So there are a few exceptions when, for example, lion mane or other species from the Hericium, Sparacis, and Romaria genera, where dry cleaning is not an option. Fungi fulfill several different roles in the ecosystems, including that fungi fruit bodies are food and habitat for several different living organisms, like other fungi, flies, gnats, bugs, their larvae, snails, small and larger mammals. There are fungi species that are decomposed by their own enzymes. If you would like to have food from the wild directly, you should not be too picky. There's a food standard that says the first class mushroom cannot have more than 2 wormholes per slice. So if you have a mushroom cut in half and there is 2 wormholes, you have a first class food, right? There are categories of edible mushrooms where a special treatment is required. There's a list here. Morels, chicken of the woods, some boletes, cloudy funnel, honey mushroom, and some Amanita species which are edible. But it is better to cook, fry, bake these species well and long. Long means 15 to 20 minutes. You are now familiar with the nutritional composition of fungi fruit bodies, and here's a question for you. What component can be neutralized by a heat treatment on a temperature of boiling water? Mineral, fiber, vitamin, a protein, carbohydrate. No, carbohydrates are not deneutralized.
So Karen says all of them.
Yeah, but that's not a good answer, I'm afraid. Fibers also not damaged by boiling water.
Mm-mm. Can you say the choices again?
Yeah. Oh, that was good. Proteins. So proteins are the good answer because of the proteins. So I hide the chat window. Okay. So proteins with a heat treatment, a protein deneutralize. It means that it loses the spatial structure and thus the biological function, while the primary structure and nutrition value remains the same. Vitamin could be also a good answer. For example, we know that vitamin C is degraded by heat, but there is no vitamin C in this case. Okay. Let's see these species in detail. In Europe, we have Verpa bohemica. It is called an early morel, and I know that it is available also in North America and yeah, too. It is a popular choice edible mushroom species, and there are other morel species from the Morhella genus. These are different in Asia, in North America, and in Europe. We have Morhella esculenta. You have Morhella americana, yellow morel, and there are other species from that genera, but from the gastronomy perspective, they are considered similar. In Europe, we have a chicken of the woods is a group of mushrooms from a Latiporus genus. In Europe, we have Latiporus sulphureus, which is abundant, and two other rare species from that genera. And I know that in America there are several different species from that Latiporus genus, which are not equally considered edible. For example, Latiporus huronensis, which grows on conifers, are considered not edible. But anyway, when you cook a chicken of the wood, you should better to blanch and then cook long and well. We also know that Lectinum species can also cause gastrointestinal symptoms if it is eaten by raw or not well cooked. Cloudy funnel is the same species in Europe and in America, Clitocybe nabularis, also called cloudy Clitocybe. It is also an aromatic species. Armillaria and Desarmillaria genera are also in this category. There are species from that from the Armillaria genus that are available in Europe, Asia, and North America, and there are species from that genus that are only on one continent. So different species, but again, from the perspective of the gastronomy, they are considered similar. Some species from the Amanita genus, like the blusher, can also cause stomach upset or other discomfort when it is not cooked well. And also other Amanita species we call the grisettes. You know, those species without ring also should be cooked well. There are species with aromatic smell and taste, which can also cause a stomach upset. You can use the kitchen technique called blanching, which means prepare your mushroom, clean properly, slice, and drop into boiling water. Wait 1 or 2 minutes and then remove. Have you heard about strange mushroom poisoning cases when a subject ate their favorite mushroom dish as usual, but this time it went wrong, and they no longer can have their favorite mushroom without a gastrointestinal symptoms. It is a kind of an immune effect, and it is based on individual sensitivity. You can avoid this by using the kitchen techniques, above mentioned kitchen techniques, and a modest consumption. Do not eat too much mushroom at once. Do not eat too much mushroom even for lunch. The species in this category, for example, early morel, cloudy funnel, and bluet species like wood bluet, Colibia nuda, and sordid bluet, Colibia sordida. You may know them, the former name lepista. From the Xerocomus genus, there are also species that can cause that kind of symptom. You know, those small bolate species. You can dry a finely sliced a bolete, a brittle gill, a mushroom species, agaricus species, and a fairy ring fungi and other summer species in the sun. When you dry mushroom in the sun, the ergosterol is converting into vitamin D2. So it is a good way to dry mushrooms. Not every mushroom species is good to dry. For example, chanterelles are hard to rehydrate. It remains a tough, hard, but you can powder a dried chanterelle and cook a sauce or a cream soup, for example. We can also dry mushrooms with a commercial dryer, a fruit and vegetable dehydrator. Set the temperature to around 100 Fahrenheit and keep mushrooms in the dryer for 1 day. The result should be crispy, and put the dried mushroom into an airtight container, and you can keep it in room temperature for 1 year. Black trumpet is, for example, better in a dried form than in raw form. And you can also dry a species, a shaggy incap. It is a incap species, which is hard to preserve, but it is good to dry with the dryer. You should remove species where the gills are not snow white, but gray or pinkish. You can preserve mushrooms by freezing, but a blanching or sautéing or other heat treatment is required to stop enzyme activity. There are a few species which is good to pickle, like milkcaps, honey mushrooms, and chicken of the woods. Take your favorite pickle recipe, boil water, put salt and vinegar, and season it with pepper or dill, ginger, etc., whatever you like in a pickle, and pour it onto the mushrooms. We have a very nice species, Lactarius deliciosus, a delicious milkcap, I think the English name, which is a gorgeous orange mushroom, and it looks very nice in a salad. I can imagine a pickled indigo milkcap of yours. Hungarian gastronomy has a great tradition, and mushroom dishes are part of this tradition. You can see an example for that. I visited my father and forayed in the mountains in springtime, found these gorgeous morels, and a 100-year-old cookbook was pulled off from the shelf with this tuft morel recipe. It is a before picture. You can see a good amount of pig fat in the pan, and you can hear the far cry of my cardiologist. At least morel do not have cholesterol, right? So we now know that we cannot eat morel in raw, but what about other mushroom species? I used to say that you can have a shiitake, for example, in raw, but it turned out that it can cause allergic reaction and skin irritation. So I say now that you do not eat mushroom in raw. Cook 101% of them. And when you roam in the forest and have a fresh bite of Bradley, a Lactarius volumus or a porcini, this is the remaining -1%. I think this channel, this media, is not optimal for sharing mushroom recipes. You have a colorful cookbook for that purpose, but I would like to share the easiest recipe for tasting a mushroom for the first time. So clean your mushroom properly, dry, with a brush and a knife. Slice them. Take a pan, melt butter, and cook the mushroom for about 5 minutes with a pinch of salt. You can experience the true texture and the real taste of the mushroom this way. You can use almost any kind of spice for a mushroom dish. It depends on what cuisine do you follow, or what cuisine you follow, what dish you cook. But you will not make a big mistake if you add thyme, parsley, garlic, wine, olive oil to a mushroom dish. Somehow I never cook a spicy hot dish with mushroom. Maybe it is because it fades the mushroom real taste, or maybe because there are a few hot taste poisonous mushrooms. Finally, I would like to share a saying from a famous Hungarian mycologist 2 centuries ago. Mushrooms are bread of scarcity and spice of prosperity. Let us wise enough to choose prosperity with protecting nature and fungi within. For the whole learning experience, here are exam questions, and please also take a look at the self-assessment form to measure your knowledge, and also give feedback on a learning assessment form. Thank you for your kind attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Great. Thanks a lot. So yeah, so are there any questions? Let's see. Let's go through the chat here.
Yeah, quote was.
So earlier, Jessica, she asked, how do you decide if an area has potential contamination?
Oh yes, that's not an easy. If it is an industrial area, for example, or a landfill that you can see, and it is obviously a potentially contaminated area.
Yeah, I know that in some parts of Texas, they do spray with pesticides and herbicides and things like that. And so it's good to not go on roadsides.
Okay, they're different because it is another kind of contamination. What I was mentioned, it is a heavy metal contamination. It could be, for example, cadmium is, for example, an improperly handled battery.
Yeah.
When a battery in a soil and the cadmium is going out with precipitation, etc.
Okay, so let's do one more question, and then I'll announce who the winner is of the recipe book, the Fantastic Fungi Cookbook. Let's see. Let's see.
I saw a question about the quote. So
Yeah.
it says mushroom is bread of scarcity, and spice of prosperity.
I like that one. Okay, so let's announce the giveaway. So I picked a random number, and Zach, I don't have a last name for you, but you were the person on the list that I picked to win the cookbook. So I can send it out tomorrow. If you can email me your address. And I'm putting the Central Texas email in the chat right now. And if anybody else has a question, go ahead and raise your hand. There's a lot of really great comments. I like the one where someone said that it felt like we were sitting around talking about mushrooms around a fire, which is very cozy. And so Irina asks, so we need to avoid eating mushrooms outside unless they are very fresh. The only way is to grow them ourselves or eat them right away, or does it depend on the type? I've seen old oyster mushrooms in HEB. I have too, and I've seen some bacteria growing on oyster mushrooms in HEB. Yeah. you know, a lot of the specialty gourmet mushrooms, I know they have a very short shelf life. So it's still really important to kind of make sure and inspect when you're even buying at the grocery store. But Attila, do you want to go ahead and add to that question?
When okay, I mentioned mold, for example, mushroom on mushroom. That is a problem that is usually that is usual when you pick mushroom from the wild.
Yeah, and
Do
it's
not eat.
yeah, it takes time to like knowing, and there's a lot of good information online to know kind of the freshness of a mushroom, but you know, every mushroom's different, and things like polypores are going to be a lot different than your guild or even tooth
Yeah.
mushrooms like lion's mane. But some mushrooms will like dehydrate, especially in Texas since it's so warm here. Like things like wood ears and even oysters, you can find them kind of dried up and they will rehydrate. But the main thing is after a while, especially with things like oysters and maybe not so much with wood ears, but there will be insects that will be laying their larvae in the mushroom. And, you know, if that doesn't gross you out, if you're fine with that, because all of our food already, like things that are grown on farms, they already have a certain level of insects that are allowable by the FDA. So just kind of keep that in mind rather than being, you know, it's just a little extra protein. It's what people like to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah,
So,
a question of how many. Uh,
and I've seen people like with morels, for example, and even chanterelles, you can kind of soak them. I know you're not supposed to soak some mushrooms, but with those, you can put them in a little bit of salt water, like warm salt water, and it will, some of the larvae and bugs will like come out of there, come out of the morels. But it's also really important to cut your morels in half because you can find all kinds of friends that are
yeah,
living inside the morels.
yeah. You can soak chanterelle, but other mushroom is better clean
With a
dry. Yeah, with
brush
a
or like
brush.
a rag. Yeah. Boletes especially. So our next guest speaker, Dr. Gordon Walker, he's known famously online as Fascinated by Fungi. He's famous for kind of patting boletes on the, or kind of spanking the bolete. And he has a lot of TikTok videos and content online. And I know it's like a real issue with some people. Some people don't like it. But it's how he's sort of knocking the, you know, knocking debris and insects out of the mushrooms, especially boletes. You got to find those like really fresh because they pretty quickly you will have a lot of fungus gnats laying their larvae inside the nice little honeycombed
Yeah,
gills.
especially in summer. In in uh, in winter, there are no larvae.
Yeah, after we get a freeze, we're good to go.
Yeah,
But yeah, here in Texas, we still haven't had a freeze.
yeah.
So we're still dealing with flies and all kinds of fun. And so,
Do you have velvet food? I mentioned that Flammulina velutipes. Do you have there velvet food?
Oh, what's it called? Or what was that?
Velvet fruit.
Velvet foot.
Yeah,
I
the mushroom.
believe we have that one. I can look on iNaturalist.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're not familiar, that's an app where you can look and see what is fruiting in our area. You can search an area, and there's just millions of observations of organisms of all different types, but you can filter by species of mushrooms. You can filter just looking at all the different kinds of mushrooms.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
your project on iNaturalist.
oh, yeah, it's mushrooms of Texas.
Yeah.
I know there's not that many that are added, but yeah, there's none in Central Texas area. You have to go to Houston. You can find some velvet foot. You know, Houston's about 3 hours away. Um, but yeah, there's
It
quite a
is
lot
also
more
not.
diversity in
Yeah,
Houston.
it is also not one species. It's a group of species. Uh,
Yeah,
Not only Velotypis, but Flexipes and other species on the same genera.
yeah,
And macroscopically, it is I cannot say that what exactly.
yeah. We've been getting, lately people have been finding wood bluets, a lot of oysters.
Yeah,
Um, when we went to East Texas for a mushroom foray with the mycologist David Lewis. We were finding a lot of the honey mushrooms and also the aborted entomoloma, which is shrimp of the woods, which was the first time I got to find those and try it, which was really fun. There were some of the Amanita species that are edible. I find that a lot of people don't take the risk with Amanitas in
yeah,
North America.
yeah. You
We
should
do have,
take care.
yeah, we do have um, the Amanita, uh, the toxic, the Eastern North American destroying angel in Texas, which is the Amanita bisporgera. It's the Latin. Um, and so that's one that we just have to be really careful of. But I do, I haven't seen a lot of people taking risks. When you go to Mexico, though, the Caesar, the American Caesar, is
Yeah,
grows very large and delicious there.
yeah, and beautiful.
Um, Very beautiful. And we don't get a whole lot of kind of the edible boletes. Like a lot of people say the ones we get, the bicolored and the ruby boletes, they say they taste kind of soapy. And I just haven't tried them usually because they're fruiting when it's very moist and in the heat peak of summer where there's a lot of insects out.
Yeah, you have a Amaryrubescens. Amanita Amaryrubescens
Hmm.
is the closest relative to our rubescent species.
Yeah. And we also have a bunch of the grisettes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So what are some of your favorite wild mushrooms to eat
Yeah,
or
I
new here?
mentioned that delicious milk cap. I love that mushroom.
Mm.
Your favorite?
Wow. I haven't tried that one before. I want to try it. I have tried the indigo, Lactarius
Yeah.
indigo, which it's okay when it's fresh. Um,
Try to pickle it.
yeah, I think that would probably be better. It's just kind of has a little bit bitter flavor, but I do
Yeah,
have to say chanterelles, and people do say Texas chanterelles, they pack a lot of flavor because it's so hot here. They don't grow really, they don't get as fluted.
Mm.
You might see in other parts of the North America and even the rest of the world. Like I feel like they just have a lot of flavor built up in like the smaller size, and it's just so good. But I also do love morels, of course. It's just one of a kind, and I've only found them a couple of times in the Central Texas area. So I know there's like a few counties that have a lot of them. We had someone in our Facebook group that was just sharing buckets and buckets of morel mushrooms she was finding.
Yeah,
And,
we are on the plain here in Szeged, and early morel is the most abundant morel
mhm,
species, Verpa bohemica, and it is
mhm,
very strange for me that it is the same species in North America that
mhm.
in Europe.
Hmm.
Consider
Yeah.
the same species,
Yeah.
maybe to change.
And we're finding out too that the morels are kind of mycorrhizal and decomposers and maybe endophytes. We
Yeah,
just
yeah,
you know we
yeah.
like switch costumes depending
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think we're finding that about a lot of the different species of fungi. I think they get studied in very specific parts of their life cycle, and it's kind of hard without a lot of field study to know kind of what's happening. Um, but yeah, any particular Hungarian food dishes that you think recipes we should check out?
Yeah, I said that Hungarian cuisine had great tradition, but I'm afraid today Hungarians cook stew from everything, and
Yeah.
what's remaining is breadcrumbed.
Yeah, you got the goulash and the paprika.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We cook a stuffed cabbage in Christmas time, and
Mm,
we can put mushroom in the stuff.
that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, um, let's see. Do we have any other questions? What did the term aromatics mean on conditional edibles? Do we answer that question?
Yeah, yeah. When it has an annoyingly strong smell,
Okay.
it is not necessarily a bad smell. It can be um, perfumey smell, but too strong.
Mm-hmm.
If you have ever smelled a cloudy funnel,
Mm-hmm.
then you know what I'm talking about. No, truffles are different. Truffles are like, for example, corny smell. It is not. It is not annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Not strong.
Okay. And yes. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or if there's one that I missed, maybe just let me know. Raise your hand.
Yeah, you can. I see a question about meal caps. Not only pickled, you can grill a meal cap. It is very good in that way when you grill a meal cap.
Nice. Well, if anybody has any recipes they want to share in the chat of what they're making, I actually had a really good enoki recipe that we had at our leadership potluck the other day. It was leftovers, but it was like a vegan recipe and had like tahini and some cucumbers. And it was kind of almost like a cold pasta salad, which may not seem super appetizing this time of year. I know everybody likes soups, but it was really good. And I just subbed in chicken of the woods in a green curry, kind of a Thai recipe. But we're kind of working on a spring recipe zine that's will come out around February or so, that will have a bunch of recipes in it and photos and things like that. And we made a couple of different recipes. We did like a larb, which is it's like a Vietnamese recipe with oyster mushrooms. We actually they were from a farm, but they were mutants and they had rose combing on them. So we rescued these imperfect mushrooms, black pearl oysters, and chopped them up. You know, you didn't see the kind of rose combing on the mushroom once it was chopped up and put into with all the other ingredients like carrots and a couple of other vegetables, shallots, and we used a lot of different Vietnamese flavors, but kind of eat them like tacos, but with like lettuce wraps. That was really good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so everybody keep a lookout for our so I will put once I find out this recipe, I'll put it on the Discord, and we'll be sharing more recipes on the blog, and then we're going to have this zine that's going to be kind of a traditional printed hand zine that you can order on our website as well. But yeah, always love talking about gastronomy, safety, and foraging. We'll likely do some more foraging classes coming up this spring. But yeah, appreciate everybody for coming out tonight and sharing your evening with us. And if we don't have any other questions, we'll say good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone, and hope to see you all at an upcoming event.